So now I go from Arizona to my neighbor in Ohio, Warren Davidson. Warren, thank you for coming. Number one, I appreciate it, and you know okay. So you're a veteran, right? Yeah, he's a veteran and someone who, again, you know, I describe a guy who, you know, stands up as a conservative, again, Reagan conservative, right down the line, and a guy who connects to blue-collar America. And, you know, the more I see of the Pete Staubers and the Warren Davidsons, I have a lot more hope for the future of the party because they get it. They know where the party's going. They're principled, they're conservative, and they can communicate with voters that, like in Ohio, where we can start making the gains that we need to start getting this country back. So, thank you, Warren.
Thanks so much.
And strong pro-lifer, I might add.
Yay! Thanks for the stuff you've done on pro-life and in pro-life in Ohio. So
Yeah,
I think that's where we first met face-to-face, coming to my district.
Yeah, I've got a call into your governor about a bill that I want to make sure he signs. Have you heard about this?
He's pretty good on life, but
this is on. This is one of these transgender.
Save women's sports.
Yeah, save.
I've kind of called him out a little on that.
Yeah. So
he thinks there's no role for government. He's the same guy that was lots of government for the past year.
I love Mike, but you know we just gotta.
He wavers a bit.
He wavers a bit. He wavers a bit. So just so you know, I got a call in.
Thank you, Senator.
Well, so look, it's an honor to join you. Thanks for the invitation, and look, it's an honor to get to serve in Congress. You know, 20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago, I was serving in the 75th Ranger Regiment. That's still probably the best job I have had, and probably the biggest honor I'll ever get professionally. You know, so it was incredible to get to do that, and that was the topic I was asked to speak with you on. Really, how does Congress, frankly, do its duty and reclaim its authority on war making? And they've surrendered that. Like on so many issues, Congress has just kind of abandoned the duty that they have, and they're fine taking criticism public, but they're not fine doing the duty up front. So that's the piece. So look, when I enlisted in the Army after high school, I graduated high school and enlisted in the Army. They sent me over to Germany. The Cold War was still going on. The Berlin Wall was up. While I was there, the Berlin Wall came down. Got to walk through Checkpoint Charlie, shared like a Thanksgiving meal in the nicest restaurant in East Berlin. From doing that, I get the chance to go to West Point. And if that's all that ended up happening in my life, you'd say, God bless America. What an amazing country, right? But from that time frame, our country really has been wandering around aimlessly on foreign policy. There's no real clear grand strategy that has united our country since the end of the Cold War. And you can say, well, we had the war on terror. And for a while, the country was pretty united on that. But the fact that they're not united would reveal the fact that you've got a 2001 AUMF that's in place for virtually everything on the war on terror. And we've been in Afghanistan for this whole time. If you follow the news recently, you'll see that the latest intel expects that within 6 months of the United States leaving Afghanistan, the Taliban will control the country. The government that we spent 20 years training is apparently so weak that they will lose control of the country. And that's sort of like socialism, right? It doesn't develop strength. It doesn't. When you do something for everyone, they don't get strong. You know, trees need the wind to blow to get deep roots. And either they never develop the strength, or they lose the strength that they did have because we're in place to do it for them. When our country was founded, the French didn't come fight our revolution for us. They gave us the means to win the revolution ourselves. So Congress really has a duty to cast the vision and to declare our wars. That's clear in our Constitution. It's also clear in Federalist 69. And it's big consequences when you don't. And the reality is we send our military to war, and what happens is the military goes to war. The military's been at war. You've got families that are on 6, 7 deployments over there, and the strategy becomes a little disconnected. Sun Tzu said, you know, no nation's ever benefited from a prolonged war. Donald Trump said it well in one of his State of the Union addresses. Great nations don't fight endless wars. That doesn't mean great nations don't fight wars. It means they declare them, and win them decisively. That's clearly not what's happened here. So there are a lot of reasons why, but the root of it is Congress is not declaring the wars. And when we do declare them, there needs to be a way for Congress to say, how's it going? You measure the results of it, and then you hold people accountable. The executive branch. And you count on honest testimony on that. So I want to go back to when we went into Iraq. Right, so after 9/11, one of the most clear needs for force ever, clear active war. We needed to go to Afghanistan and get the people who attacked America on 9/11. Iraq, not as clear-cut of a case. So Colin Powell goes before the United Nations, says we have to get the weapons of mass destruction, and gives the neoconservatives the ammunition they needed to kind of take over what was historically the Republican message, which was actually a strong military, but a reluctance to use it unless we were going to use it decisively, especially post-Vietnam. So Eric Shinseki was at that time Chief of Staff of the Army, and he came and spoke before Congress. He gave an honest answer. And for giving an honest answer, which is to say, yeah, we can get in and occupy Iraq quickly with a small force. The trouble is, if you want to do the rest of the mission that you're telling us to do, well, that's going to take a much bigger army, and it's going to take a long time. And for that, he was fired, right, by the Bush administration, by, at that time, Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld, and so a lot of conservatives, Republicans thought that was the right thing at the time. But over time, you found he gave an honest answer, and what happened is you had a flawed strategy. It was a traditional approach to fighting an unconventional war. And so this is the thing that Bertrand Russell said, good conservative, laid out, war doesn't determine who's right, it just determines who survives, right, who's left. And so that's exactly what's going on in Afghanistan right now. Who's left? Well, the Taliban's left. They've outlasted us. They weren't stronger than us ever. But that would be evidence that you can actually defeat America without F-15s or nukes. Hopefully, we don't need to see that domestically, but we are looking at a country that is massively weaker, and we're losing control in Afghanistan because we're not willing to occupy that. Now, thankfully, our country's still been made and kept free by an all-volunteer force since 1973, and I think that's important that we can do that because it shows that the will of the people is that we're going to preserve this great country. But when you say to people that we are literally battling to save our country, it sounds like hyperbole, and it's not. It truly is not. Now, we fight in Congress by voting, and right now we don't have the votes. But I'll end on saying, what can you do? Well, one, just follow the Declaration. What did the founders say? They said they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. And what you know is when you speak out and you're public, your honor's on the line. This new woke system that the left is pushing has its own heresy code. And they're ready to hold you accountable if you cross that line. They'll cancel you, you won't get hired, you could lose your job, you could lose admission into schools, you could lose funding, not get loans for your business, your nonprofit could be canceled, the IRS is back to activism, coincides with the new administration, just like the previous Biden administration. And so, sacred honor, we get that that's on the line. Your fortunes, well, it does take a lot of money to run campaigns, and some of you, give very generously and can take time out of your schedules to come just do things like this. Not everyone can, but it's like a lot of things. It does take resources to do it, and so support people. And I don't mean just like Congress, but like school boards. I mean, if we could get control of our school boards, or we could win the presidency next time, it might be more important to get control of our school boards across the country. So all these things really matter. It truly is an insurgent sort of effort, right? This is what we've looked at. Progressivism has been going on since the post-Civil War era, and we're seeing the point where they're really seeking to impose that in a very authoritarian style on our country. So, and then hopefully it doesn't come down to pledging our lives, right? Well, hopefully that doesn't become the case, and we stay within the game that's currently being played, and no one tips over the whole peace, because then we lose what we're fighting for. It's not just power for the sake of power. It's a republic if you can keep it. And the oath is that. The oath is that, I solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. It's not power for the sake of power. It's to preserve this great country that we have where so many things are possible. Congress has its first and primary duty in preserving that. And the key to that is to constitutionally declare our wars. Because when you don't, you empower what Dwight Eisenhower, who was clearly no isolationist, said would be big threats to this great country. The military-industrial complex, because they would wage things that were for their interest and their power at odds with America's. And the other one that he cautioned against in his farewell address, not as well known, but we felt it a lot this past year, the scientific technical elite. No one more emblematic than Dr. Fauci, who's put his own interest in the truth at odds with America's interest. So we really have to fight to preserve it. It is a republic if we keep it, and we got a lot of keeping to do. So I'm happy to take some questions, and it's just an honor to be invited to speak.
Thank you, Warren. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Just one quick question. The comment that Biden made, which got interpreted, because I didn't really listen to what his comments personally was, you guys have nukes and we have F-15s, which is a slightly outdated jet. I don't know why I didn't say J-35s, but whatever. Maybe that shows his dementia. But just internally within Congress, didn't everybody go, what the hell did he just say?
Yeah, it is a shocker. I will say one of my colleagues has a firearms business. He sells firearms. He's a federally licensed dealer. He showed me as a billboard of his business, and he put up AR-15s in stock, F-15s and nukes, special order. But it is shocking to hear the President of the United States say essentially what Eric Swalwell said.
Right.
Hey, we got nukes.
Yeah.
Which is an overt threat against the domestic population.
Didn't somebody recently try to be impeached for?
Conform or die, is how somebody might have taken his comments. Yes, sir.
Thank you for your service in the Rangers, Congressman. I served some time at the foot of the Khyber Pass in Afghanistan, at Peshawar, in the northwest frontier of Pakistan, the U.S. Air Force. And I was in Kabul for a while as well, in Afghanistan. Went through the pass, actually flew over, and landed in Kabul and served some time there. That was a long time ago that I did that, but nothing's changed. I'm an optimist like you, and I hate to see us leave. I hate it. But that area is controlled, that part of Pakistan up in the northwest is not controlled by Karachi or by Islamabad, the capital. And as you may well be aware, and Afghanistan is a mess. It is controlled by local chieftains. And as long as they're in charge, they're not going to let democracy come and grow. They're just not going to let it happen. And I'm an optimist like you, but I don't see how we could be there another 30 or 40 years, and nothing's going to change unless you get rid of the chiefs somehow in those tribes. It's a tribal region, unlike the rest of the Pakistani government doesn't even have control of that northwest province of Pakistan at the foot of the pass. And Afghanistan is a mess. What do you think?
I completely agree. I think that all of the authorizations we currently have been outdated since the end of '04. I think the approach has been wrong-headed. We came in very swiftly and imposed our will on Afghanistan and then got distracted by Iraq. I was personally opposed to the Iraq War. I wasn't in an office at that point. And I was highly opposed to the second phase of the Iraq War, which was, let's go create a democratic Republic of Iraq. When you got a limited mission with a narrow focus, go find the weapons of mass destruction. That was hard to get comfortable with, but I think broadly people did when Chairman Powell at the time, or Secretary of State Powell at that time, said, hey, we got to go get these. It's a real credible threat. He had a lot of credibility at that point in time in his career. And it was abused by the neocons. And since then, they've basically shifted the whole debate to where anyone who would question them is an isolationist. That was the benefit Eisenhower had when he said after World War II, no, we're going to balance the budget. We're going to invest in infrastructure. We're going to build America, not build the rest of the world. He did some of that with, obviously, the Marshall Plan. But if you look at what happened after World War II, we focused on solving problems, not fighting endless wars. Same even when it was tempting to stay and do something more in Korea, he limited that and didn't expand it. And look, the most clear-cut place in the world to see the difference American military power has made today is the Korean Peninsula, where we did get involved, and then where we didn't get involved. And you can see it very clearly in North and South Korea. But you're not going to see that in Iraq. The minute we leave, the vacuum's gone. It's just as true today as it would have been if we left it in '04. And in my view, once we had Saddam Hussein by the fall, winter of '04, started winter in '04, late fall, all of it was obsolete, and we should have been. Look at the alternative. We fought ISIS and defeated ISIS, just like Trump said we would. If you would have followed some of the advice of the neocons, we would have had armored divisions in Syria pushing regime change. And we would have had the same sort of thing where friends like my good buddy Hans Kurth, who died with an IED, driving down the same supply routes every day waiting to be ambushed. Instead of what we did, which was smart. We did very strategic attacks against the leadership, like al-Baghdadi, and we did limited engagements with proxies. That's economy of force. It's a principle of war. We didn't lose objective. We didn't follow the principles of war, and you win. And when we get distracted, like we have for 15 plus years at least in Afghanistan, you squander your wealth and really squander your power. Because in the meantime, Central Command soaked up all these resources, and America, in my view, has been made less free with things like the Patriot Act, less safe because we've not focused our defenses, and heavily burdened by debt. I mean, at least 20% of the debt we have is because we fought endless wars. Yes, ma'am.
What do you think will or can be done about the thousands of Afghans, people who were supporting the troops, who are going to be left there?
Yeah, I think we have a moral obligation for those who've helped us to be able to come to America legally and efficiently. I'm a co-sponsor of a bill with the only other former Ranger, Jason Crow. He led the bill, and it expedites their path to being able to be here. I think that's probably going to be broadly supported, and I think, look, if we want people to be our allies and to take risks, to risk their own lives, fortunes, and sacred honor in their own countries to help us accomplish our goals, we have to honor our promises to them. Yes, ma'am?
Can I just ask a follow-on question to that?
Sure.
What about the interpreters and people that have worked with us in Afghanistan that may have already left Afghanistan for their own safety? Because I know at least one is stuck in his family in Pakistan, and we can't get anyone to help him.
Yeah, I think the key is the people that worked with him need to vet the identity. And look, there's a much clearer path and a much smaller population of people that helped us than, say, the DACA population, So this is not the same. There's a blending of all this stuff that, I want to get into separate issues. I do think there's an easy way to know who it is that helped us, and wherever they are, you find them and you help them. Part of the Ranger Creed, you never leave a fallen comrade to fall into the hands of the enemy. And they might not be our countrymen, but they were certainly our comrades pursuing a common mission.
Thank you, Mark.
Yep, thanks, Senator.
Thank you.